The topic for tonight's shiur, it's a very, I don't think it's controversial, I just think it's very, very sensitive. It's a very sensitive topic. We have to treat it with sensitivity, because the reason why it may be viewed with controversy is because the human emotion and the human toll that's involved in this kind of particular shaila is really, really quite significant. I noticed that there are only men in the room here tonight. I'll probably end up giving this shiur to a group of women at some point in the future. But I just want you to know, Yuri, there's a handout over there. I want people to know that this is a very relevant topic, and it's becoming, unfortunately, it's becoming only more relevant. And the reason why it's becoming more relevant, especially in Orthodox circles, is number one, because of the way that we have self-inflicted injury upon ourselves socially, in the way that we create shidduchim. We do it in a very bizarre way, and it creates a stigma for older young ladies who find it increasingly more difficult to find venues where they can meet a young man. And there are going to be a certain percentage of both the male and the female population in the Jewish world who simply are not going to get married. But what is important to underscore is that while that may be just fine for some people, there are some people who may not be driven to marry. At the same time, there are people who may, let's say, for whatever reason, their personality is not mat'im for having a spouse, but especially when it comes to women, there's a very strong maternal drive. And for them to go through life not knowing that they're not going to be able to have a child is very, very painful. Sometimes more painful than not having a mate is not being able to have a child. And so that's why it's such a sensitive topic, because it would be, normally we say koach dehetera adif. It's always easier to say something is usher or something is problematic, but we have to also keep in mind that the human toll for saying that something is not permitted is quite significant for some people. We're talking about real lives that could be potentially very, very compromised as a result. So therefore, the topic of this year, just to review, a single woman who's not going to be getting married for whatever reason. She's not going to be getting married. Maybe her sexual preference is different, or maybe she has no sexual preference. She's not driven by that to be intimate with a man. Maybe she's sort of come to the realization that she's not going to get married for any other reason, but she has this very, very strong drive to have a child. What are the parameters for us to tell this person halachically, yes, no, maybe? Okay, so I just want to look at some sources first, and then we'll take a look at some of the more contemporary tshuvas. The reason why your packet is so thick tonight is because it's mostly filled with an English responsum from Rav Yuval Shurlo. It's also completely available in Hebrew, but I figured that someone put in a lot of time and effort translating it into English, and there's a lot of technical terminology. I figured, why should we break our teeth over a long tshuva in Hebrew? Let's just do it in English. In any event, let's take a look. The Mishnah tells us that there's a machlokas as to whether a woman is commanded on the mitzvah of pru or vu. And this will raise the stakes significantly, because if a woman is not mitzuvah on the mitzvah of pru or vu, then you could say to yourself from a cold halachic analysis, what's the big deal if she doesn't get married? She's not squandering a mitzvah. You don't have a mitzvah of pru or vu, so what's the big deal? And that seems to be the way that we paskin. The Rambam paskins that way, and it's the machlokas, the Chachamim and Rabbi Yochanan ben Baruch in the Mishnah. The Chachamim are the majority rule, and we paskin that a woman has no commandment in the mitzvah of having children. But if you take a look, interestingly, at the Gemara, on that Mishnah in Yevamos Daf Samachay Amud Beis, the Gemara says like as follows: Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka Omer Itma Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. There's a machlokas here between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Chad Omer halachik Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. V'chad omer ein halacha k'Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. So it's a machlokas. How do we paskin? Does a woman have an obligation to have children or not? So my havi Allah, what was the final upshot? Tashma da Amar Rab Acha bar Chanina Amar Bavo Amar Rav Asi. So these rabbis relate that uvdahava, there was once a situation, and as Rashi fills in the blank, what was the situation? A woman comes to the Beis Din and she says, I want a get because my husband and I cannot have children, and I believe my husband is responsible for us not being able to procreate. So she comes to Rabbi Yochanan B'Kinishta de Kesari, in this place in Caesarea, V'Amar Yotzi V'Yitein Ksuva. And Rabbi Yochanan paskind, you're entitled to a divorce, and you're entitled to receive your ketuvah because you have a legitimate grounds for divorce. A woman is entitled to a divorce, but if she doesn't have legitimate grounds to divorce, she forfeits the ksuva. But here Rabbi Yochanan says, you have legitimate grounds for divorce, you're entitled to your ksuva. So v'isal kadaitach lo mifkida ksuva mayavidita. Well, what grounds for divorce? She doesn't have a mitzvah of pru or vu. Why does she have a right to demand a divorce if there's no mitzvah that she's squandering by staying married to this guy? So the Gemara answers, Dilma Biva Machmas Taina. So the Gemara says, well, perhaps in that case it was, so the Gemara wants to use this as a proof. Doesn't this prove to us that we paskin that a woman does have a mitzvah of having children, and therefore she has grounds for divorce? So the Gemara says, not necessarily, because in that case, Dilma Biva Machmas Taina, maybe she came with a legitimate grievance outside of the issue that he's not having children. Because there was another case of a woman who came to Reb Ami saying, give me the ksuva because my husband is not giving me children. So Amar La, Zil lo mifkidas. So he said to her, so what, he's not giving you children. That's not a reason for you to be entitled. You don't have grounds for divorce. What's the issue here? So Amar Le, Misivu dila maiti havi alada hach itza. So she said to him, in my old age, what's going to happen to me? In my old age, who's going to take care of me? In other words, her argument was, I grant you that I have no mitzvah of pru or vu, but that's not my taina. My taina is, who's going to take care of me when I'm an old person? My husband's not going to take care of me. He's probably going to predecease me. And I'm going to have no children who I can go to for the Yomim Tovim, who are going to be able to take care of me when I'm infirm. And what was his response to her? Amar kiha vadai kafina. He says, if that's your taina, then you have grounds for divorce. And a similar story, Hahi da asai lakame de Rav Nachman. A woman once came before Rav Nachman, again with the similar complaint, I want to get because I have no children with this man. So Amar La lo mifkedas, and he said to her, that's not grounds because you have no mitzvah. So Amar Le lo bayach hach itza chutra liyada umara lekvura. But she says, but doesn't this woman, referring to herself, doesn't she need a walking stick for her hand and a shovel for her burial? In other words, who's going to take care of me when I'm infirm and I need someone to help me walk across the street? Who's going to be there for me? Who's going to be my caregiver? Who's going to take care of my kavura when I die if I leave no children to take care of me? And he said to her, based on that, Amar kiha vadai kafina. And he said to her, based on that, you have grounds for divorce. If that's your concern, then you have grounds for divorce and you're entitled to your ksuva. Okay. Rambam paskins that a woman does not have a mitzvah of pru or vu, but he also paskins that in the event that she comes with these grounds that says, I need someone to take care of me in my old age, then she's entitled, that's grounds for divorce, she's entitled to demand a divorce. The husband has to grant her a divorce. She's entitled to the ksuva, but the only thing that she's not entitled to, Zak the Rambam, is the tosefis ksuva. You know how we add in a little bit more in the ksuva? So he says the husband only agrees to the tosefis ksuva is if he can call the shots as far as when to divorce his wife. But if she comes with grounds like this, that's on those conditions he did not guarantee her the tosefis. But the ikr ksuva that she's entitled to. And in honor of Gerard, we have the Meshech Chachma for tonight. So the Meshech Chachma at the end of Parshas Noach says, Od yitachen lomar. The Meshech Chachma asks a very interesting question. He says, why is it that there's only a mitzvah of pru urvu for a man and not a mitzvah of pru urvu for a woman. I mean, after all, didn't God say to Adam and Eve, pru urvu? So why is it that we, using different hermeneutics, we derive that a woman is still exempt from this mitzvah? But why is that? Why did God not mandate that a woman has the same obligation as a man in this mitzvah? It's not a mitzvah sasesha azman grama, so why is it any different? So he has a very interesting theory. He says, Od yitachin lomer bitam shepatra haTorah nashim mipriya uravia mishum de be'emes halo hitbi'a b'teva hateshuka uvenekeva od yoser. He says that there is within a woman this natural desire, an even greater desire for a woman to be married, that a woman would rather be married, and therefore, because God embedded within woman a natural desire to be married and to have children and to be domestic and have a family and to be with a husband, a woman never likes to be alone. So he says that in itself is this sort of the surrogate for God having to command. In other words, the point is that the Meshech Chochmah, it's a fascinating argument as far as Tamei HaMitzvahs. He says a man needs to be commanded to have kids because a man does not have a natural parental instinct necessarily to say, when I grow up, what do you want to do? I want to have kids. Not every male has that attitude. But a woman has a natural desire, what do you want to do when you get older? I want to get married, I want to have children. There's a natural desire. Okay, maybe this is the part that you cut out of the tape because this is not PC. But there is a greater desire among women to have a married life with children, and that in itself obviates the need for the Ribbono Shel Olam to command it. Because since he embedded within the female a natural desire, I don't need to command you anymore because I know you'll take care of it anyway. Okay, that's the next point. The Bechor Shor, in his commentary to the Chumash, says, one of the Rishonim, says that the reason why the Torah says, Lo Yovo Pitzua Daka, that a man who is sterile cannot marry a Jewish woman, which, by the way, I think we may have mentioned in a previous year. This creates problems for any man who's had a vasectomy and he's not married. He's not allowed to marry any woman, right? There's certain halach. Did we have a shir about vasectomies? I don't remember. But maybe years ago we may have had a shir on vasectomies. There's some poskim who say that a person who's had a vasectomy is a pitzua daka, or at least a kru shavcha, and therefore he can't marry a woman. Put that aside for a second. Why is it that a man who is sterile cannot marry? The Bechor Shor says, why not? She's not commanded on pru urvu. So he says as follows. He says, "Va'af al pisha ha'isha eina mitzuva b'priya uravia mikol makom baya chutra liyadu mar lekfura." But he gives the argument of the Gemara. He says, part and parcel of the institution of marriage is to procreate and have children. He says, if you can't give that to a woman, then you're not allowed to marry women within Klal Yisrael, who are fertile. And uchasiv lo tohu b'ra l'sheves yitzar, that God did not create the world for naught, he created it for procreation. And that's true, that applies even to non-Jews as well. And so therefore, if a person is not capable of procreation, we don't want him to marry a woman who's fertile because he's depriving her of that opportunity to have children. From all of the aforementioned, the point of the argument that I'm trying to develop here is to show you that not only Chazal, but also the Torah is considerate of the fact that even though a woman doesn't have a mitzvah of pru urvu, but there is this desire that a woman has definitely grounds for, and we're sensitive to that she wants to have children so that she can have some legacy that she can leave over, either to take care of her when in her old age, or just to be able to feel that fulfillment of that maternal instinct. Yeah.
But all of these sources seem to point to the woman getting remarried. In other words, she wants to get a divorce because she doesn't have any children from her husband, because she wants to remarry.
Of course. She wants to be able to be in a relationship where she can have children. The point I'm trying to make is that Chazal are sensitive to the fact that you can't just dismiss a woman who says, I have no children, and you can't say to her, well, what's the big deal? You don't have children. You have no mitzvah of having children. The answer is that Chazal are attendant to a woman who says, even though I don't have a mitzvah, I still have grounds to say, children are an essential part of my life. That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay. In the Daf al Hadaf to Maseches Kinim, there's a Mishnah that says that if a woman volunteers and says, Harei alei kain keshe'elei zachar, she makes a pledge and she says, I hereby pledge to bring an extra pair of birds as a Thanksgiving offering. Then the Mishnah says she has to, when she gives birth to a male, she has to bring 2 sets of birds, one for her obligation and one for her pledge that she made. And he quotes the Tiferes Yisrael, who quotes in the name of the Tashbats, one of the Rishonim, and he says, Madua tanan ha'isha sha'amra harei alei kain keshe'elei zachar. He says, why specifically are we talking only about women? Why don't we talk about a man who makes a pledge? And so he writes, Upirei shahanashim semechos tfei im zachar. And why specifically does she make a pledge that if I have a male? So he says that women are happier more if they have a male child, midahavale al yedei zeh chutra liyadeh, because this provides her with the security that she needs to know that someone will take care of her in her old age. Aval beishu lahefech shesameach yoser kisheteled ishto nikeva ad kan devarav. But a man is just the opposite. A man is happier when he has his firstborn is a female, because, like he says, because bas techila simin yafa labanim, because if you have a girl in the house first, she'll help take care of all of the other children, and it's a good simin to have a healthy family, because when you have an older daughter, she helps out with the parenting duties. And so he quotes from the Sefer Lev Aryeh, which is a more contemporary Shutz Sefer, that he writes, Halacha l'maisa im abal yachol liton ba'ina chutra. The question is, does a husband have grounds for divorce if he says, my wife and I are not having children, and I want a legacy, I want to have children? Is this only a taina that a woman can make, or is this a taina that a man can make also? That I want a divorce because my wife is not giving me children. V'hashe'ela l'maisa sham ha'isa be'inyan zug shehu nasui mizeh k'sheish esrei shanim. B'mahalech hashanim noldu lehem arba habanim v'kulam pegumim. The question was like this. A couple has 4 children with a disability. Each one of them has a genetic disability that's congenital. And huvrar ki ha'em noses machla turshatit hagoremet lekach. And it turns out that the woman is carrying a genetic marker that is presenting the children with this genetic defect. V'chi yitachen shekol v'ladoteha yu pegumim bifgam zeh. To the point where it's possible that all of the children that she has will have this particular birth defect, and the husband wants to taina that I want someone to take care of me in my old age. In other words, these children are going to be disabled, and it's a terrible tragedy, they're going to be disabled, and they won't be able to take care of me in my old age. Does a man have the right to say, I want to divorce my wife, have her forfeit the ksuva, and I want to move on with my life and have healthy children? Ha'av tovei alechai v'sa'isha lizgaresh v'toin kirotza b'yoladim b'rim shichu lisod oso b'ziknusa. So he writes in the Tshuva, the Lev Aryeh, he says, Tainas habal kirotza yoladim b'rim shichu lisod oso b'ziknuso matzinu domala b'yachas le'isha. Right? We find this taina, that a woman can say, I want someone to support me in my old age. So therefore the question is, can the husband make the same taina as well? And he quotes from another sefer that says that Osa hazachus sheyesh leisha litvoa get mi baila, Osa zachus yesh gam labal lidrosh ezos, gam im lo ba lidrosh get mi koch mitzvahs pri or viyach mo beisha haba machmas taina. So he does bring from another sefer that says that a husband does have a right to make that argument. Ulam, he says, Acharei shelo reinu ligdolei ha'achronim shenachtu lazeh ladun shegam etzel habal shaykh din zeh shel but since we don't find any other poskim who ever make this allowance for a husband to make such an argument, but he says, but it's still something that we're not clear on, that it could be that only a woman has this argument to make that I want to create healthy children in my old age. Yeah.
The man doesn't have to come onto the tiny. He can simply say, I have a mitzvah for pruvavu.
So he says that. So we say to him, you fulfilled the mitzvah of pruvavu. You had disabled children. You had disabled children, so you fulfilled the mitzvah.
Which raises the question, are disabled children considered to be yotzei the mitzvah pruvavu?
Well, it depends to the level of disability, I would imagine. I think that the Gemara says that they have to be able to procreate in order for you to fulfill the mitzvah. So let's say they are capable of procreating. Okay. In any event, I just thought that was an interesting aside. Let's take a look. I'm grateful to Laser Friedman for making a photocopy of Rav Steinberg's, who's going to be our scholar in residence this Shabbos. Rav Avram Steinberg is going to be the scholar in residence, and he has I believe it's a 7-volume. Well, you only have 6, but I think there is a 7th, no?
Just came out. It's 6 volumes, 99 sections.
Oh, okay. Harafuah Kahalacha. No, there was an earlier thing that he came out with in the 1999, isn't there?
Right, that was his original. That was an encyclopedia.
Right.
This is now safer.
Oh, okay.
Halacha,
So it's
6 volumes.
So it's six volumes. Okay. So this is from the second chelik, and he says as follows: Lechatchila ein levatzeya hazra'a melachotit leisha pnuya. He says lechatchila, you should not arrange for a woman to be artificially inseminated if she's not married. There are many cases of artificial insemination which are sanctioned by halacha. This is an old shaila that we've discussed already before, that if a couple is childless and you discover it's because there's difficulty in creating a fertilization inside her body, so then you can do in vitro fertilization, you can have a surrogate mother. There's all different solutions to this problem that are sanctioned by halacha. That's an old shaila that has already been discussed, and it's been gepaskined, and there's many, many heterim for it. The question is, what about a single woman who comes and says that I'm already of age, and it doesn't look like I'm getting married, and I'd like to be able to have a child? So Rav Steinberg says that the consensus of the poskim is lechatchila, this is not something that we present to a woman as an option. We don't present it to her as an option of saying this is a viable option for you to do. But mimikrim miyuchadim yesh la'asot shelat chacham. In unusual circumstances, or if a woman comes to us with this shaila, you should do a shelas chacham, which basically means it's controversial. And he writes in the second column, he writes, bi'urim uvirurim. And this is the thing that's a little bit ambiguous. He says, he gives 2 points, point 1 and point 2. Hatam, the reason. Havlad me hazra'a zu yigdal b'mishpacha chad horit. He said, a child from this kind of situation will grow up with only one parent. Matzav hanechshav kibilti ratzui mibichinat psikologit chinuchit. And this is not something that's considered desirable from a psychological or educational standpoint. Umibichinah hashkaftit Yehudit, nor is it considered desirable from a Jewish hashkafic point of view. Uvederech klal ein ze tovat hayeled, and in general, this is not beneficial to the child. Ha'isha mevi'a al atzma la'az shel chshad zenut. Furthermore, a woman presents with a child of her own. Where's the husband? Oh, I don't have a husband. Oh, where did he go? There never was a husband. So she brings into question, well, maybe this was due to a promiscuous lifestyle that brings the suspicion upon her. Which, I'm saying, Abi and I were just discussing. Abi, you do a lot of britot today, which is very common for women to exercise this option of being impregnated because they're career women, they never had time for marriage, and you do brissim all the time on women who do not have, there's no father. And I don't know whether in more modern times, whether there's an automatic suspicion to be made if a woman presents this way, where's the father? It's not like we assume that she had a one-night stand.
What's the difference?
Well, you're not supposed to present with a chshad. In other words, if you're not supposed to walk around with with a package of bacon over, under your arm, because someone's going to say, hey, what's this guy doing with a package of bacon, right?
Shamer.
Yeah, so v'yisam nikiyim me Hashem u'me Yisrael. You have to try to make yourself innocent, right? So don't do things that are going to draw attention or suspicion upon yourself. Okay. Furthermore, yesh chash shezera pagum shenolad ba'avera motzi zera levatola yitochen shi'ei lazeh hashpa al havlad. Another thing he says, if a child was born through the sin of gratuitous ejaculation, where a man donated his sperm to a sperm bank, then there's a possibility, at least on a spiritual, metaphysical level perhaps, that the child will be drawn to that activity himself. Okay. It's a very strange argument. Yesh chashash lipritzut. There's another fear that this will cause a breakdown in chastity. Kasher torim hazerahu anonymi kifi shekora b'derech klal b'matzavim ka'elu yesh chashash shemayisa achet achoto. And finally, he writes that another reason that's presented by the poskim is that in cases where the sperm donor is anonymous, this might create a situation where a person inadvertently makes a shidduch with someone that they're related to. A sister, this could result unintentionally in incest.
The last two issues, wouldn't they be using non-Jewish?
Right, so you obviate this last problem.
And second to last.
The second to last?
Was the other one?
No, well, I mean, the question is, does a non-Jew have the same commandment of Motzi Shechva Zera Levatola? According to many poskim, he also has the Isser of Hashchasa Zera, which is not so simple. It's an interesting analysis. Is there an Isser of Hashchasa Zera for a goy? Okay, number 2, he says, Kegon isha revaka sha'asta ma'amatzim lihitchatein v'lo histayeya biyada. When we're dealing with a single woman who's really tried to get married over the years, but was unsuccessful, v'hi magia l'sof tkufat haporiot shela v'nafsha chafetza bivlad. She reaches the end of her years of being fertile. She's in her, let's say, mid to late 30s, and she now really wants a child. U'bibichinat chutra liyad umar l'kfura. And she wants to have a legacy. She wants in the language of the Gemara, she wants to have someone to take care of her in her old age. V'hakol behetem liraot einei hadayan v'latzanaim hamutarim shel hazra'a melachotit. It is in point number 2, what he's footnoting is that he's saying that when do you do a sheilas chacham? You do a sheilas chacham when a woman really is a frum girl, but Nebuch did not succeed in getting married. She really did make the effort. It's not like this was a life choice. She made every effort that she could, was unsuccessful. And in this situation, she really comes with a valid halachic argument that she would like to have someone to support her in her old age. Why should she go through life knowing that there won't be someone to support her? One of the Meir Makomos that Rav Steinberg quotes is from a sefer called Leiv Shomea Lishlomo, which I had never heard of before. It's written by a modern Dayan by the name of Rav Shlomo Dichovsky, who is a Haredi Dayan in Eretz Yisrael, but he's quite atypical in that he gets involved with societal issues, and he recently got an award from Bar Ilan University for creating bridges between the Haredi community and the Chiloni community. So he's very forward-thinking in that respect, but he's totally Haredi in every other respect. So he writes the following tshuva, Knisa leherayon shel ravaka begil mitkadem, which thankfully I had on the Otzer Chachma. And he writes, I was very taken by the presentation that he gives, halacha umidiniyut halacha. What's the difference? There's 2 phrases that he uses. One is halacha, and then the other term he uses is midiniyut halacha, which is social policy of halacha, or public policy of halacha. In other words, there's one thing to say what the halacha is, and then there's also public policy halacha, which is what do we do as a community in the best interests of the community, even when something is halachically permitted, there are times when we may say, as a public policy, it's not prudent, it's not something that we would advocate. And so he writes as follows: Nishalti ha'im revako pnuya begil mitkadem, ha'chosheshet shema te'acheret ha'moed l'leidat yeladim, ha'im lahatir la lihikanes laherayon be'emtzeut trumat zera migoy o meyehudi. So I was asked that shaila. Girl is getting older, woman is getting older, I should say, and she wants to get artificially inseminated either from a Jew or a Gentile. What's the halacha? Heshavti ki she'ela zu eina she'ela halachtit, ela she'ela shel midiniyut halacha va'af hareish devarai. I said this is not a halachic question. This is a public policy question. And I explain my words as follows. Halacha u'midiniyut halacha hem shnei musagim shonim. These are two completely different issues. Hahalacha poseket et hadin legufo, beli lihitchashev b'nisibot ba'oto zman o ba'ota tekufa. The halacha takes into account only the cold facts of what is mutter and what is asr, without taking into account the fallout or the impact based on time and place. Midiniyut halacha eina sotah chalila min halacha, aval biyocholta lahatir isur o heter gam b'makom shemebichinat halacha hatohora hadavar shoneh. He says, but public policy halacha is where you can paskin something is either permitted or forbidden, not based upon the cold, pure halachic analysis, but based upon public policy concerns. Hadivarim einam amurim b'makom sheyesh hora'at sha'a hama'afsheret listot min halacha mishum eis lasos lashem eferu torasecha. He says, I'm not talking about where there's a need for hora'at shah, where you need to make an emergency psak under unusual circumstances because of eis lasos lashem. So there are times when you have to make exceptions, but what he's saying is, lo medubar b'she'ela halachtit. So I'm just skipping a few lines. He goes through a whole bunch of different examples of halacha midiniyit, or midiniyut halacha, where he gives some examples. I'm just trying to think of some of the examples that he gives, where let's say Chazal said that from the pure halachic aspect, let's say for example, riding a bicycle would be permitted on Shabbos, right? From the cold, just from a purely cold analysis of the halachic issues, rollerblades or scooters would be permitted on Shabbos. But from a public policy standpoint, the poskim will sometimes say that's usher. Not only pasnish, they'll even say it's usher, which is the public policy halachic stance of modern poskim today. What?
The umbrella on Shabbos.
The umbrella, what? There's
no issue for it, but
no issur of ohel midarabanan?
It's been written, but the main reason to keep it was because of this public policy.
Yeah.
You want Shabbos to do, but you can take care of all the oil problems.
Okay, all right. Okay. Lo medubar b'she'ela halachtit mishum she'efshar limtso harbei tzdadim lahatir. And therefore, in our case, we're not dealing with a purely halachic issue because there are many reasons to be matir this shaila. Many reasons to say that it's permitted. There are so many ways that we can halachically justify allowing a single woman to receive artificial insemination. When you come up against the cold facts of the halacha, there's really nothing to say that it's asur. Hachevra hamishaveket letzibor hadati hi chevra nifredet. Kol ovdei hadatiyim. That what is this? Hamishaveket letzibor hadati. He says I think I'm not sure what that sentence means. I think it means that there's a separate community in the religious community. Haba'alut ha'elyona eina gorem halachti lahachrim et hachevra, midubar b'midiniyut halachtit hamuf'elet be'etem l'shikol da'at shel gedolei ha'alacha. He says the ba'alut ha'elyona. I'm not sure what he means by these terms. Eina gorem halachti lahachrim et hachevra. That, in other words. Eina gorem halachti.
I think you're saying what would be a narrow halacha is ultimately a very wide disparity in terms of the datim who deal with it, and they've broadened it. In other words, it can be made very.
Okay. He says, Yitzuyan, he says, let me give you an illustration. Ki bizmano asak Reb Yaakov Emden b'she'elam yesh makom lahamlitz al hapilag shot kederach shel nisum lelo kvalei nisuim. Reb Yaakov Emden of the 18th century dealt with the shaila. What about pilag shim? Can a man have a pilegish? And he came to the conclusion, Reb Yaakov Emden's life was very unusual, to put it mildly, but he came to the halachic conclusion that even after the Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershom, you could justify taking a pilegish. And maskanato hayitzal l'chiyuv im yaskimu gedolei hador. But he said that I'm only prepared to allow pilegish if I get the haskama of the other gedolim of my generation. And hu lo kibel et haskamatam v'daito nishara dat yachid. He didn't receive their haskama. No one else agreed with him, and so he remained a minority opinion which was never implemented as halacha.
Is he saying facts make bad law?
Is he saying what?
That facts can make bad law.
Right. I mean, I guess in a sense, yeah.
Circumstances are such that.
Sheila. So he says, Sheila domeh nish'ala im lahatir lepnuyot litvol. Another example is, should we tell girls who are single, who are living perhaps promiscuous lifestyles, should we tell them to go to mikveh because it's better to sleep with a guy when you're not a nida than when you're a nida? And of course, it's one of those very difficult, right, from a halachic standpoint. A cold, calculated person who's robotic would say, yes, the computer says that there's a no isser kares if she's not a nida, so it's always better for her to go to mikveh, right? But you're not taking into account the larger calculus of what this is going to result in. Bichdei shelo ligrom l'isser nida. Rabim asru biglal hamidiniyut halachtit shelo laodeid kiyum yechasim michutz lenisuim v'chein noagim l'maisa. But the majority consensus is that from a public policy standpoint, this would be disastrous, right? Because what would this do? It would only encourage more promiscuity, right? So that's basically what he's saying. This is what I'm up against. This is what I'm up against. It's the pilega shaila. It's the single girl going to the mikveh shaila, right? It's that kind of shaila. Okay. He continues and he says, "B'nosei haravakot hamiucharot hu alu mispar hatzaot." He says as follows. He says there are really 4 possible solutions for an older young lady who is still not married, or maybe never will get married, and wants to be able to have a child, or to guarantee that she could have a child. So he says the first option is for her to freeze her eggs, which I know a number of women have done. They freeze their eggs when they're in their 30s, because that way, at least, if she finds a guy when she's in her 40s, and her chances of getting pregnant are severely reduced, at least she can perhaps retrieve her eggs and have them fertilized that way. And he says there are a number of issues involved there, and I'll just speak it out. For example, he says when a woman reaches that critical age, she requests that they extract her eggs, or some of her eggs, and when she finds her bashert, so then she can get her eggs will be fertilized. He says, what's the revach? He says, what's the benefit? Harevach b'derech zuhu, shenitein lahotzi bitziot kasher isha b'matzav fizi matnim b'derech klal ad gil 35, u'lishtamesh b'hem gam ka'avor shanim. The reason why you do this, obviously, is because you can use the eggs later in life. Mibechina mada'it kayemet migbala shel eichut habitzit b'gil mevugar, ולכן יש צורך בהוצאתה רגיל האמור לאל, אולם כמעט ואין בעיה לאישה בגיל מתקדם לקלוט ביצית מופרית ולהרות. He says, obviously, basically going through the science, it's clear that there's a greater chance of an egg of a 35-year-old woman to be fertilized than an egg of a 45-year-old woman. כמו כן, אין בעיה לגבר מבוגר להפרות אישה. But yachad im zot yesh kan bayot acherot. Ha'isha chayevet limtso baal, v'habal chayav lahaskim lahazra'a b'derech zu. Number one, that's working under the assumption that she's going to find a husband. Number two, it's working under the assumption that the husband that she finds is going to agree to artificial insemination like this. And v'im hadavar yikre begil mu'char tzarich lekavot shetuchal lamod beherayon begil kazeh. And then you also have to hope that her body will be strong enough to tolerate the pregnancy, because all you're doing is getting a younger egg, but what about her womb? So that's also a consideration. And then you have another consideration. It's what I feel when I take my youngest child to school, which is I feel like I'm one of the grandfathers instead of one of the fathers. I remember back in the day when I had my oldest son, I was the youngest father in the classroom. Now I take my youngest son, Yirmi, to events, and I'm the oldest guy in the room. So you sort of feel, you think to yourself, right, I'm going to be like, you start thinking to yourself, because I've spoken to people about this, so when they graduate from high school, I'm going to be in a wheelchair in the old age home, right? In other words, so people think about it in those terms, right? So that's a consideration as well. Am I going to be there for my kids if I freeze my eggs and wait until I'm well into my 40s before, or even 50s before we have a child? Okay. בנוסף תצטרך האישה להמתין תקופה ארוכה ולפעמים ארוכה מאוד עד למציאת הבעל ועד אשר תוכל לחיבוק ילד. And of course there's the emotional toll of a woman who says, I want a child, and you're telling her you may have to wait years before you have that opportunity because you have to wait until you find a husband. And she wants her child now. And what he also doesn't point out, which I've seen in a number of Sfarim, or if Shirlo writes this, freezing an egg and hoping for artificial insemination to take, the technology has improved dramatically, but it's not a slam dunk. Not in any sense is it a slam dunk. There's a far greater chance that a woman will have a successful pregnancy through artificial insemination while she's young and the egg is inside of her than if she freezes her eggs and hopes for a successful insemination that way, right? Granted, the technology has improved, but it hasn't improved so much that it's exactly the same calculus as getting impregnated through a donor. The other option, he writes, is to take out her eggs, have it herself artificially inseminated. The third option is, he says, ha'efsharut ha'shalishit minugedet l'mediniyut ha'halachtit ha'mekubelet. He says the third option is, oh, by the way, I'm sorry. The second option is to have a fertilized embryo and then freeze that. That's also an option. Or to give over a child to a surrogate mother. In other words, to give up her egg. He says like this. Option number 2, Hotzaat bitzit shel isha v'hafrayata al yedei gever zar v'lachar mikein havarat habitzit hamufrit le'em pundikait. That she can have a surrogate mother, carry her egg, have a sperm donor, and then have a child that way. He says the third option is something that is...
What does that offer?
He says, "Hatzaa zu me'afsheret imahut akifa gam lelo baal, mibeli sheyeh tzorech lahamtin tekufa ein sofit." It provides the instant satisfaction of having a child. B'derech zu kayamot bayot enoshiyot v'halachtiot, but you still have human and halachic problems. Reshit ha'isha mishtodeket lo rak lechibuk yeled ela gam leharot v'leledet oto. On the one hand, a woman wants a child, but
building up to that. Notice he's saying these are other options.
These are other options, right? But he's building up to that.
Surrogate versus doing it, then once they're already looking at this business, they're probably going to do
Right.
something else.
Third option is something that currently, he said, is not public, from a public policy halachic standpoint, is not accepted. Haderach shel kinisa laherayon be'emtzaut hotzat bitzit shel isha v'hafrayat al yedei gever zar v'hashtalat habitzit hamofrit b'rachama shela. He says, "Zeh bevadai ha'efsharut ha'mu'adefet al yedei ha'isha ki gam habitzit gam ha'herayon v'gam ha'leida yiula." He says the woman would prefer that the most because she'll carry the child. She'll feel that the life that's inside of her, the baby kicking, and there's that gratification of being a mother through the pregnancy as well. Ulam derech zeh ka'amur minugedet lemediniyut ha'halachtit shenikva'a al yedei gedolei Torah. He, however, says currently the Gedolei Torah are not in favor of such a procedure. And he says, and certainly in a situation where a woman is going to do this, it would be better for her to use a Gentile instead of a Jew, so that you don't create the problems of bastardy potentially or of incest. And option number 4, he says, Eineni ma'ale klal al hadat, rayon shel kiyum yechasim bein ha'isha uvein gever zar letzorech asiyat yeled, musag shekayam letza'arenu b'chugim sheinam shomrei mitzvot, velo ya'ale al hadat b'tzibor shomer mitzvot. He says the 4th possibility is something that is completely out of bounds. He says, even, where he says that socially it's extremely destructive, and it's against the Torah concept of what's healthy, of where a man and a woman who are not married decide to have a child together, and they maintain a kesher so that they can co-parent the child while not being married. He says, that I certainly am not in favor of. Have you had that case also?
I think you might see that more commonly in same-sex individuals who meet each other for procreative potential, but have no interest in other than a platonic relationship.
Right, so you may have a lesbian couple and a gay couple.
Correct.
Who will,
Co-parent.
they will co-parent, they'll exchange eggs
Or
and
singles,
sperm.
doesn't have to be
Right.
a couple.
Right, okay, good.
Practical.
Okay, so what you've seen up until now is that the consensus of the poskim, and the reason why I felt this tshuva from Harav Dichovsky was so pertinent is because he spells it out. Halachically, from a cold, stoic halachic analysis, you can definitely justify the practice. From a public policy standpoint, it becomes much harder to justify because it could end up resulting in destructive things for Jewish community. Now, it becomes much more difficult to present that argument to a young lady who says, I just want a child. Becomes much more difficult. Yes?
Why is adoption not discussed as one of the options? And is it a good...
You're right, he could have used that as one of the options as well, adoption. The problem is like this, in Eretz Yisrael today, they will not, I believe, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, my understanding is that in Eretz Yisrael today, you cannot adopt them if you're a single parent. It could be in certain countries that is acceptable, but it could be the reason why he doesn't mention it is because it's not viewed as a viable option for Israelis. Yes?
Is that why Rabbi Steinberg seems to say that in certain unique circumstances, go to your local dayan and don't make it a halachic?
Yeah, I think he's essentially, I think he's channeling Rav Dichovsky. He's basically saying that this is a matter of public policy, that we will not give a blanket heter for any single woman who wants. That would be disastrous. For us to make sort of like a public policy statement and saying, if you've reached a certain age and you've given up on getting married, go right ahead and get artificially inseminated. No one is prepared to say that. Not even the most lenient opinion is prepared to say that. It has to be handled very, very carefully. It has to be, the person has to be analyzed properly, emotionally, psychologically, halachically. Also, this has to be viewed as a b'di'evid, as Rav Shurlo himself writes. Rav Shurlo was castigated for writing the tshuva that you have in front of you 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago, for suggesting that it could be justified under certain circumstances. And I'll show you the articles in Machon Pua from 2009. Rabbi Menachem Burstein, head of the Jewish fertility organization Pua Institute, said that there is not one rabbinical religious authority in the world allowing a single woman to give birth. Now that's hyperbole, but he's making a public policy statement. You understand why he's making a public policy statement. He's doing it because the recognition is that just like telling a girl that she can go to mikveh if she's going to be promiscuous is a disaster from a public policy statement, it would be disastrous from a public policy to tell women it's okay to give up on ever getting married and therefore you go ahead and have a child on your own. Yes, Gerard.
Research to show, because I know in Israel there are groups of women who are single and do have children later on,
and they come together and they support each other. I'm wondering if there's any research about these type of women.
If there is, I'm not aware of it, but there is a website that I have for you on your sheet called kayamamoms.org. Kayamamoms.org is a website that is dedicated to women, from women who are single mothers who have given birth to children through artificial insemination.
Like Devorah Ross.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I don't know anything
She's-
about it.
She's a huge Talmidah Chachama. She actually wrote the Hebrew paper that is a definitive, it's a scholarly work on this whole subject.
On this
beginning
subject.
to end, and she's a mother herself who got impregnated.
Okay, thank you for that.
On the subject of adoption, why in the Gemara, when these people were coming before essentially Amoraim, and asking them shilas, why in the Gemara did it, because they're saying, we want somebody in our old age to be able to take care of us, why didn't they answer, instead of telling them to get divorced, why didn't they say, why don't you adopt a baby?
It's a good question. It could be that it wasn't so easy for adoption. Maybe that wasn't socially accepted in the times of the Amoraim. I don't know. We do know that there's a concept of kol hamagadol es ben beno ki'ilu yilado, right? Or kol hamalamed es ben beno Torah ki'ilu yilado. But it doesn't seem that it was such a common thing for a yasom to be adopted. Yasomim generally, what happened to Yasomim? They went to work. They went to work, and they basically lived a very, very tragic life. Yes?
So you mentioned this morning, you've had situations here that you've had to deal with in this?
Yes.
What do you do when people come to you?
Well, I've never dealt with a situation where a woman has sought my counsel to ask me whether this is something she should or should not do. I have not faced that situation
Ahead of time.
ahead of time. I've only faced situations where the woman has come to me after the fact. I'm pregnant, and the father is a donor. So the response to that is, and the concern is, will I be accepted by the community? And the response is, I will fight anyone who challenges your right to be part of this community. I will be your biggest advocate. Because,
Take up membership in the shul?
yes, 100%.
Because she wouldn't fulfill the criteria.
What do you mean?
The way it's written currently, if let's say two men want to come and.
That's different. That's
Right.
different. No, completely different hechatim.
Because the wise people who wrote this years ago didn't have nevuah to know that this could be a potential.
I don't know what
child.
you're referring to, Lazy.
No, I'm not being cryptic. I'm saying I think that a family unit is seen as a mother and a father. So.
There are many cases of divorced parents where only
Yeah,
one
of course,
parent.
divorced. I mean, we're not talking.
No, but it's ma'asim b'chol yom. We have many families in our shul where the one parent lives in one city and the other parent lives here, and we allow them to have a family membership. So why not allow that for an almana, is a woman whose husband died? We still allow a family membership.
Well, it's part of the public policy. It's that.
So I don't believe, I haven't carefully gone through with a fine-tooth comb our Constitution, but I don't believe that there's anything that would preclude a single parent from having a family membership. It could be what we have to,
Specific case in the Gemara, in Yushalmi, right?
what's the
Of
case?
Yochanan's sister.
Well, I'm
He
not
went to
familiar with the
mikveh,
case.
and it wasn't married, he became pregnant.
Ah, okay.
It wasn't, nobody
I
put
was
her in
wondering, one
harem.
of the
Thank God she went to
Nevi'im
the mikveh.
also-
Yeah, Yirmiyahu
Then, yeah.
had Ben Sira, yeah, as a result of that same thing, with an unusual case. Okay, Rav Willig has a shir on Wayu Torah, where he also is machmir, like Rav Steinberg, as a general public policy, that he feels that this is destructive to, he says, obviously artificial insemination within the context of a married couple certainly is justifiable, but not for a single woman, he feels. And also, he feels, he also, in that very same shir, he said that a couple should not, lichatchila certainly, should not freeze their embryos or their eggs because the woman has to finish her career training or wants to finish off her career or her education. He says that's not a justification for deferring having children. It's a very important thing that we have to really speak about on even a more broad societal level, which is what some of the causes for women eventually not getting married is because they preoccupy themselves sometimes in their early 20s with their education and career, and then by the time they're ready to get married, they find themselves at a disadvantage. And that also has to be discussed carefully and sensitively without saying one is right or one is wrong, but also making it very clear to the young women in our community that there's always prices, there's always exchanges to be made. But anyway, the point that I wanted to read to you was this controversy behind Rav Yuval Shirlo's tshuva, that Rav Burstein, who's a tremendous Talmud Chacham and one of the Iker Poskim on fertility issues, he's doing great work at the Pua Institute. And he writes, he was very critical of Rav Shirlo's tshuva. Speaking during an event at the Ono Academic College, Rav Burstein claimed that Rav Yuval Shirlo has reconsidered an approval given in the past to a single woman approaching the age of 40 to get pregnant from a sperm donation. And then when Rav Shirlo was asked, he said he refused to approve or deny this claim. Those who want to know my stand on this matter should turn to me, he told Ynet. And later on, after publishing his original tshuva, he wrote a second tshuva, which was much more lengthy in its discussion of all of the considerations that have to be taken. And his maskana is that by all measures, when dealing with this kind of case, we're dealing with a b'di'evet. We're not dealing with a lichatchila. There is never a lichatchila situation where a woman should opt to be a single parent, regardless of her parental instinct and regardless of her desire not to get married. But he says in a b'di'evet situation where a woman finds herself in this situation, and it's sadly a b'di'evet situation. In other words, no one's excited that this is right. But if that's the situation that she finds herself in, and she wants a moral, a chutra liyado, moral lekfura, like the Gemara's language is, he feels that it can be justified under those limited situations, but in each case has to be done under she'elas chacham. It has to be done under the counsel of a posek. This is still quite controversial, and therefore it has to be taken on a case by case. To be honest with you, I'd rather a woman not come to me before the fact. But if a woman were to come to me before the fact, I would present to her all of the issues. Can I tell a woman in good conscience, Hashem will help you, Hashem will find you a shidduch? I can't do that. I can't do that. Because I can't take that sense of responsibility to tell a woman that I know for sure you should have more bitachon and Hashem will take care of you. I believe that would be a dereliction of my responsibility, because I can't say for sure that everyone who has bitachon that they're going to get married is going to get married, and is going to find their basher. There are so many factors. But what I can do is try my best to present this to a woman, that your child would be much better off having a father and a mother. And by the way, Rav Shirlo takes that argument into consideration as well. I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with the stance that he takes, but his argument is that he knows some single parents who are better at parenting than the children are more emotionally and psychologically healthy than some children who are in two-parent families. So you can't always make a fast and steady rule.
Especially
that
when you consider the divorce rate that is approaching 50%.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And that's a destructive environment.
yeah.
And it's same end.
But it's not the worst in the from community.
But I feel that this is an important issue to discuss, because Rabbi Yisrael, let me just finish with this. I feel this is an important issue to discuss for the following reason. You will invariably, over the years, either you or your children will encounter this scenario in your own kehillah. And when you do, not if you do, but when you do, you need to know how to be sensitive, and you need to know how to be accepting, and know how to say to a young child, boy or a girl, or his or her mother, you have to be able to look at them as no different from anyone else in the community. You look at her as no different from an almana or a grusha. You have them over the house, and you have to make it clear, at least in your own mind, that it's up to me to help compensate for the fact that this child doesn't have a father in his life. Instead of distancing yourself because you feel that, oh, I'm here to judge, That's wrong. That's totally wrong. And the proper approach has to be that in a case where there is no father in the picture, just like in a case of divorce or widowhood, we have to step up and try to fill that void as much as we can and provide good, positive male role models for this child and completely accept the child into our community and the mother.
A child born out of this situation, would they be very readily accepted on the shidduch scene?
As I started off this shir tonight saying, the shidduch scene is messed up. It's just so messed up, so I don't even know whether that should be part of the calculus or not.
Apropos to that, on a purely theoretical basis, if you have a community where the men are outnumbered by the women significantly, to the point where there are not enough men to go around for women, and the options are either bigamy, Gershon,
Or like Rabbi Yaakov Emden said, Pilegish, right?
or having children out of wedlock, basically.
Or you're talking about the artificial insemination, yeah.
Yeah. Is there
So you're creating you're saying, okay, there's three options, right? Because there are more women than men, so there's three options. Restore bigamy, restore Pilegish, or let...
Polygamy, not bigamy.
Sorry, polygamy.
Bigamy is when you have two spouses, you know.
Yeah, but this is...
isn't that bigamy?
Bigamy is two, polygamy is multiple. Bigamy is two,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Gerard is saying, why stop?
Gerard, you want more than two. You want more than two, Gesundheit. Or But Alan, there's a fourth choice. The fourth choice is that it may be that some women can find contentment never getting married.
Okay. Well,
And I believe that there are some women, look, we all know women that are our age that have not gotten married
and don't have children.
and that don't have children.
Yeah.
I grew up my wife and I are very close with a childhood friend of ours.
Right.
And she just never got married. There was nothing wrong with her. She was a very fine person, very attractive young lady. And just whatever reason, she never got married. I'm sure you all have someone like that in your life. And this is the kind of person that, for whatever reason, she made a life choice that she wasn't going to get married after a certain time. And she made her peace with that. Right? So...
It all depends on the neighborhood and where you live in the community. For example, this is really a question of hashkafa versus halacha to some extent. So we see what the halacha is, it's pretty obvious, and the question is pastnish. So in some places, in some communities, when you ask a hashkafa question, should a girl go to medical school, it raises the same issue. Halachically, there's probably no issues. But hashkafically, in many, many communities, this kind of an engagement, you're going to be going out for 8 to 12 years studying,
Well, it's the same kind of, it's the same kind of
public.
public policy concern, but just on depending on, like you say, depending on the community.
But also,
I like his analogy to this, public policy issue of telling a girl to go to mikveh, right? You know that story about the guy, I forget which Rav it was with. He went to the Rav and said, Rebbe, I was eschata'ai ani mazkir hayom, I was mizana with my girlfriend. And the Rebbe says, this is a very serious thing, but there's a pathway to tshuva. No, Rebbe, it's okay, she went to mikveh. And the Rebbe said, you mean you had the soundness of mind to prepare her to go to mikveh, and you still sinned? Get out of here. So, in other words, that was the, right?
Yeah.
No, that again that story is indicative of this kind of concern, right? It's not always choosing the lesser of two evils. There's a lot of public policy concern that has to go into this question as well.
but that's why bad facts make bad law. I mean, in a sense that you could have a situation with any woman where, for example, she says, look, I'm either going to have a kid by myself or I'm going to shack up with some goy. I mean, and you have to, some Rav has to make a decision in a situation.
No, Rav doesn't have to, I disagree. Rav does not have to make a decision. She's presenting a false dichotomy. So, like you said, it's bad facts, but the bad facts are her bad facts, they're not my bad facts. She can present me with any choice that she wants to in her mind, but I can always find a third choice, which is you don't have to do anything.
So your choice is you're basically gonna say, I don't wanna get involved, you do.
No, I'm not saying I don't want to get involved. But I can present to her, every human being has bechira chavshis to say, these are my choices, without looking into other choices. That doesn't mean that they're going to pull me into that reality, which may be a false reality. That's the whole point I'm saying.
There's precedent for your question. You have a kohen who comes to the rabbi and he says, if you don't let me marry her, he's a kohen and she's a
grusha.
If you don't let me marry her, I'm going to anyways. And
Marry her
so
anyways.
There are shuvas that have been dealt with.
Yeah, so again, you can't just wave a magic wand and say presto changeo, and then the guy's okay. You have to find a heter, to find a legitimate heter. Okay.